Tonight, Justin Trudeau now facing a deadline from his own MPs to decide if he will step aside.
The Liberal Party is strong and united.
The revolt inside the Liberal caucus, what we're learning about what happened behind closed doors, and where this could go next. A new twist in the race for the White House.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
Oh, that's baloney. Come on. Do you really believe that?
We're with his supporters here in Georgia. And we break down why there is so much distrust in the vote.
Can you understand why some people would hear that and be concerned about that?
Plus, the unusual crime spree consuming one Canadian city.
They loaded the butter in and away they went.
Why are thieves stealing thousands of dollars of butter?
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Atlanta, Georgia.
Thanks for joining us. We're here in Georgia again tonight, a crucial U.S. battleground state in a presidential election now less than 2 weeks away. But we begin tonight with political turmoil in Canada. Justin Trudeau is now facing a deadline set by his own Liberal MPs to decide whether he will stay on as leader or go. That message delivered straight to the Prime Minister's face in a closed-door caucus meeting. And tonight, we can tell you new details about how that meeting unfolded. Ashley Burke starts our coverage.
Leaving a bruising private meeting with his caucus, the Prime Minister had only one public message.
The party is strong and united.
But some of his own MPs made it clear it's time for Justin Trudeau to go.
It's incumbent on me and all my colleagues to do what we think is best for our party. And what's best for our party is a change in leadership.
CBC News has learned that behind these closed doors, the Prime Minister was told that 24 of his MPs signed a letter calling on him to step down. Patrick Weiler, the first to stand up to make their case and tell Trudeau he has until October 28th to decide.
Do you think the Prime Minister should stay?
It's not up to me. It's up to him.
The most important and fundamental decision of a leader is when to stay on and when to decide to throw in the towel.
Whatever the decision is, we'll stand behind him.
During that caucus meeting, sources say as many as 20 Liberal MPs voiced their concerns about Trudeau. Even some who stood behind him said they want a series of changes to the party.
It was the first time that we discussed this, and that was really important.
I have a lot to reflect on after speaking today and listening to my colleagues.
We've also learned the Prime Minister told caucus he would reflect on what he heard, but said he wasn't convinced he had to go.
He's quite clear about his intentions, and I don't expect those to change.
Some MPs say the infighting could be doing more harm than good.
As my colleagues need to turn the knives outwards and not inwards.
The Conservatives seizing on the Liberals' division as ammunition against Trudeau.
His caucus is revolting. Will he call a carbon tax election today?
Once the Prime Minister decides what he's going to do, those trying to oust him will decide how they're going to respond.
And Ashley, in theory at least, could that include consequences?
Well, Adrian, the deadline issued on behalf of some MPs today did not include any consequences, but that could change. For those who want him gone, this is just the start, even if Trudeau may have hoped that MPs airing their grievances would be the end of it.
All right, Ashley Burke in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Ashley. So this is obviously a good moment to bring in Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton. Rosie, what more are you hearing about exactly what happened behind those closed doors?
It wasn't an easy meeting for the Prime Minister, Adrian, obviously. For more than 3 hours, those 20 or so MPs stood up, complained right to his face about his leadership and lack of response to some of the things they've raised in the past. We're told it was respectful, but it was very direct, very frank. The Prime Minister was at times emotional, particularly when talking about the impact of those anti-Trudeau protests and flags on his children. He said he didn't sleep very well last night leading up to this meeting. He listened, he took some notes. But he also said he believes he's still the best leader to lead the party, that he cares about the country. He said he would reflect on what he heard from people today, but there was certainly no indication either at that caucus meeting, Adrian, or subsequently that he is going to leave his job.
Okay, so no sign of change from him, but this has to still be concerning.
It's destabilizing, for sure. It's not helpful when you're trying to govern or go after Pierre Poilievre and criticize him. This October 28th deadline is a little perplexing, too, given the Prime Minister has really given the answer to that. He's indicated he's staying. So his office will spend the next few days talking to people to see what's next and how they should respond. And tomorrow, the government is going to try to turn the page from today by announcing a major change in direction in their immigration policy. A government that embraced immigration will now lower their target number of permanent residents by 20%, meaning for one day at least, that leadership question may well take a backseat.
All right, thanks, Rosie. I cannot wait for Ad Issue tomorrow night.
Thanks.
Now to the race for the White House. Here in Georgia, it appears neck and neck, which is why this swing state was Donald Trump's focus today. But as Katie Simpson shows us, his campaign was also forced to respond to new allegations from his old chief of staff.
Kamala Harris called a last-minute appearance to launch an urgent new attack against her opponent.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
Reacting to reports Trump praised Hitler and warnings he's the definition of a fascist and wants to be a dictator. Claims made by Trump's former chief of staff, retired General John Kelly.
This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best.
Kelly described to the New York Times how Trump spoke about Hitler.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too.
Kelly says he felt compelled to speak after Trump threatened to use the military against American citizens.
Well, it certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
The assessment that Trump is a fascist, shared by the White House.
Yes, we do. We do. Let's not forget, I will point you to January 6th.
Trump's campaign denies the allegations, which are being brushed aside by some Republicans.
Look, we've heard a lot of extreme things about Donald Trump from Donald Trump. It's kind of par for the course.
There were no signs of backlash as Trump attracted thousands to a faith-based town hall in Georgia.
They say, and I would agree with this 100%, nobody's done what I've done for Israel.
Amid reports he's exhausted, Trump sounded resigned, acknowledging the final stretch of the campaign is here.
In many ways, it's sad because we're down to 12 days. We've been doing this together for 9 years, and it's down to 12 days.
In the final days, Kamala Harris plans to highlight the contrast between her and Trump, delivering a closing argument speech on the ellipse outside the White House, the same place Trump told supporters to go to the Capitol on January 6th. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Now, election rules have changed here in Georgia, and some fear the aim was to help Trump.
We need to be doing better and making laws and rules that really help the voter and not hinder them.
But maybe that wasn't the point of some of the rules, to help the voter vote.
Absolutely.
And a woman appointed by Republicans to help oversee the vote insists nothing partisan is happening here. We also meet the critics who say fairness is at stake. That is coming up in about 20 minutes. Now to the new interest rate cut from the Bank of Canada tonight, this time by 50 basis points. So this is the fourth consecutive time the bank has slashed rates, sending them back down to 3.75%. It is also the first time it's made a cut this large since the onset of the pandemic back in March of 2020. Anis Haydari now with what went into this decision and why some say it may have come too late.
The Bank of Canada is picking up the pace, making a big cut to its key rate.
We took a bigger step today because inflation is now back to the 2% target, and we want to keep it close to the target.
The central bank's interest rate down by half a percentage point to 3.75%, attempting to ensure the economy doesn't cool off too much.
We need demand to strengthen, take up the slack.
Cutting interest rates could get Canadians spending again.
When you have interest rates that are higher than neutral, what that does, that takes money out of the pockets of consumers because they have to pay a higher mortgage, they have to pay higher interest on their credit cards. That means they spend less.
Some homeowners feeling better after earlier rate cuts.
I've seen a drop of around $200, $300 monthly, which adds up to my budget, and I'm able to allocate money wherein I would previously think twice.
But high rates affect more than just mortgages.
So I believe if interest rates don't go back to sustainable levels, we're going to struggle in the long run.
Well, we're not even at neutral.
Some economists say the Bank of Canada needed to move faster.
And clearly, the softening in labor market is probably a big surprise to them. The speed at which it has softened, but also the speed at which inflation has come down.
If you look at the economy.
And saying they should have cut more before the U.S. election, because Americans can drastically affect Canada's economy too.
What happens in the U.S. will be a primary driver on whether or not we slow down more than what's expected in the Bank of Canada's forecast in 2025.
With economic growth already slow, the central bank will be watching how Canadians and Canadian businesses start spending before making their next decision in early December. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
All right, next, let's bring in senior business reporter Peter Armstrong. So, Peter, Anis just mentioned December. What do you see happening next?
Look, the Bank of Canada is in something of a race here, right? It's going to try to get interest rates down as quickly as possible, and it hopes that it can do that in time and give itself enough time to stave off a recession. For the last 2 years, the focus was almost entirely on inflation. That's back to, and now even below the target. So now the concern is about growth and about the jobs market. The economy has slowed, the unemployment rate has ticked up, which is why the Bank of Canada made it abundantly clear today 50 basis points is not enough. More rate cuts are coming. We could be as low as like 3% by next summer.
So when we talk interest rates, we have to talk about the housing market.
We do. And remember that before today, we'd already cut rates by like 75 basis points, and the market was still flat. So the bigger issue on housing right now is construction. We simply aren't building enough. So for all those people that are priced out of the market on the way up, they're waiting in the wings. 50 basis point cut, that's really not going to address affordability.
All right, Peter Armstrong in Toronto. There's new outrage tonight over a Rogers price hike. All week, our Go Public team has been tracking a flood of complaints over contracts customers say are misleading. Erica Johnson shows us the new push for accountability.
Carol Pickering is among a flood of Rogers customers contacting Go Public after our story about a price hike to TV services.
This is not what I was expecting.
When she called Rogers, she learned language in the service agreement allows the company to increase charges, even though she thought she had a guaranteed monthly price.
I was pretty miffed that I wasn't told about that at the beginning.
Turns out a clause says price guarantees do not apply to rental equipment like TV boxes. In email after email, Rogers customers tell Go Public it's not fair, writing, when you are retired and on a fixed income, every dollar in your pocket counts. It's a weasel way of doing business. They are acting in bad faith. And now a Rogers call center employee is speaking out, saying he's been told not to give customer refunds, to point to the clause in their contract instead. CBC News isn't using his name because he fears being fired. In an interview, he said, "It sucks. I deal with a lot of retirees and elderly people who say, I budgeted this, and now it's going up." This NDP MP says telcos like Rogers, Bell, and TELUS shouldn't be allowed to move the goalposts after customers agree to a monthly price. And he says the federal industry minister needs to clamp down.
He has the capability to connect to Rogers and tell them to stop abusing Canadian consumers.
As for Rogers, a spokesperson says most of its TV customers are not impacted by the price increase, that customers can use our free TV app without needing extra boxes and have 10 days to cancel a contract. The NDP's Brian Massey sits on the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology. He's urging the committee to request an appearance by Rogers' CEO to explain how he plans to fix the situation. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Turkey says it has struck more than 30 Kurdish militant targets in Iraq and Syria tonight in apparent retaliation for an earlier fatal attack at a state-run aerospace company. This video is from Turkish broadcaster IHA. Shows an explosion near the country's capital. At least 5 people are reported dead, more than 20 injured. The government called it a terrorist attack by the Kurdish group, the PKK. Now, the White House is confirming tonight 3,000 North Korean troops are in Russia.
I can tell you one thing, though. If they do deploy to fight against Ukraine, they're fair game. They're fair targets.
This echoes Ukrainian and South Korean reports. Washington says it's not clear whether they will be used in direct combat against Ukraine, but a key concern is what Pyongyang is getting from Moscow in exchange. Hezbollah has confirmed the likely successor to its assassinated leader, Hassan Nasrallah, is also dead. Another Israeli airstrike shattered part of a Beirut suburb tonight. This hours after Hezbollah confirmed that top leader Hashem Safiuddin was killed in a similar explosion 3 weeks ago. And there's no sign that Israel is letting up in Lebanon. Hezbollah is still considered a threat. This attack is one of several reportedly fired from Hezbollah in Lebanon, intercepted above the Tel Aviv hotel hosting the U.S. Secretary of State. Antony Blinken was in Israel again, pushing for a hostage deal that might bring peace in Gaza and beyond.
There remains, despite everything that's happened, an incredible opportunity in this region to move in a totally different direction.
The direction in Gaza now is bleak. Tens of thousands more people escaping the ongoing Israeli offensive in the north, more suffering likely ahead. The UN says that in October, food aid into the entire strip has plummeted to just 20% of what it needs. The final preparations are now underway at a landfill near Winnipeg, where there will soon be a search for the remains of 2 Indigenous women murdered by a serial killer. Cameron McIntosh now with their families, anxious over what happens next.
This excavator prepping the search site, exposing a target area where Cambria Harris is confident her mother's remains are buried.
It's been 2 years now that my mom's been laying in a landfill, as well as Mercedes Myron, and that's 2 years too long.
Harris, Myron, and 2 other women, Rebecca Contois and a woman identified by this jacket and the name Buffalo Woman, were murdered in 2022. Their now convicted killer admitted to police he disposed their dismembered remains in the garbage. It's believed the remains of Myron and Harris are in this corner of the landfill, about 5 to 8 meters down in a target zone covering about 2 hectares. As it's being exposed, a sorting facility is being set up, with test digs showing encouraging results.
The material that we excavated was drier than expected, and so that's good news. We were able to read newspapers and receipts and things like that.
Originally, police in the previous provincial government dismissed a search, calling it impractical and dangerous.
Search landfills!
Angering the victims' families, Indigenous leaders, and supporters over the symbolism of Indigenous women left in the garbage. Manitoba's current premier calls this a humanitarian act.
It was always possible. It required political will.
The families say it's about dignity for the victims and all Indigenous women.
In the next few months ahead, it'll be very emotionally tolling, it'll be physically tolling.
The actual search is expected to begin in early December. It's a daunting task ahead, digging up the equivalent of about 5,100 garbage trucks worth of waste, then sorting through it all by hand. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Montreal's Mayor Valérie Plante has announced she will not seek re-election.
I won't be asking Montrealers for a 3rd term as mayor. It is a heartbreaking decision. It was not easy to make because I do love my job.
She says she couldn't guarantee 4 more years with the same level of energy she's always given, but Plante says she will stay on until the end of her term late next year. Well, police in Ontario are looking for suspects who ran off with pounds and pounds of butter.
They loaded the butter in and away they went.
Why criminals keep targeting the dairy aisle. Researchers are warning a key to developing new medicines could soon leave Canada.
Losing work past 100 years, it's going to be a travesty.
And a turkey runs amok in Ottawa.
We've heard of delivery, people not wanting to come out of their trucks because there's a turkey right there waiting for them.
We're back in 2. McDonald's is trying to reassure customers in the U.S. its food is safe, despite a deadly E. coli outbreak linked to its quarter pounders. One person is dead and dozens more are sick, including 10 who went to hospital. The fast food chain has temporarily removed the burger from its menu in at least 10 states. The company says none of the affected products or ingredients are used in Canada. In Guelph, Ontario, police have a butter problem. And yeah, you heard that right. Thieves keep raiding store shelves and walking away with hundreds of dollars worth of the expensive kitchen staple. Jamie Strachan now on this unusual crime and where all that butter could be going.
This Guelph grocery store, the scene of a butter heist that sounds more like a bank robbery.
There was a white sedan that was seen at the back of the business. They loaded the butter in and away they went.
Nearly $1,000 worth of butter melted away into thin air, stolen by two men.
It's certainly unusual, but there is we believe an organized crime aspect to it.
That crime is now the talk of the city.
I can't imagine why they're stealing butter.
What are they going to do with that much butter?
They've got a recipe, I'm sure.
But there's more to this case. The robbery at this store was not a one-off. It turns out in Guelph there's been a butter crime wave. 7 such thefts in the last year. It's not clear if the heists are connected, but police do say most of the butter ends up on the black market or on resale websites, often at a discount.
It's particularly easy to find a buyer, to find someone who actually is interested in buying butter like that.
As a stolen food, it's quite practical.
For thieves, when it comes to butter, is that you can actually keep butter for a very long time. You can freeze it.
We've got 2 delicious cookies for you.
Jordan Foster gets it.
Now I'm fortunate if I can pick up butter for around $6 a pound. So near doubled in the last few years. Literally liquid gold.
Butter is the backbone of her cookie business. She has no interest in going to the black market, but understands why some would.
I could see it would be an interest to stock up, especially if you are someone that leverages or uses butter in a lot of your recipes.
As for the investigation,
there's no serial number on butter, I don't think. There's no VIN, that kind of thing. So it's a little harder to track it down.
All of it, a recipe for a tough solve. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Guelph.
There's anxiety here in Georgia that a tight election could devolve into chaos.
Now fundamental freedoms are on the ballot.
The growing distrust and how some are working to stop it.
There are people that are sitting with this anxiety that's completely made up.
And Trump's biggest supporters tell us why little can sway their vote.
His whole inner circle from his time in office has spoken out against him, including John Kelly now.
That's baloney, come on. Do you really believe that?
The National breaks down the story shaping our world. Next. An important scientific collection of fungi is at risk of leaving Canada for good. Funding issues may close the Toronto facility. And as Thomas Daigle explains, that could complicate the development of medical breakthroughs.
We'll have a fresh culture of the cantaloupe strain.
As far as fungus goes, this one is famous. A sample taken from a moldy cantaloupe that yielded a strain of penicillin, saving countless lives in the Second World War. A breakthrough often associated with the Nobel Prize winner Alexander Fleming. That living fungus is one of a staggering 15,000 strains kept here at a University of Toronto facility that now faces an uncertain future.
The costs to operate the biobank are probably around $120,000 a year. We've reached a point now where it doesn't look possible to maintain this biobank resource in Canada.
Federal grants dried up years ago, and Director James Scott says he's struggled to scrape together funding ever since.
Preserved this way, many fungi can last probably forever.
Now, within months, North America's biggest collection of its kind could be broken up with fungi sent to Europe or China. A troubling prospect for scientists across this country.
Losing this huge collection is going to, the impact cannot be overstated.
Imagine that all of Shakespeare's works were suddenly to disappear.
importing living fungi for research can prove time-consuming and costly. Consider the deadly anthrax-laced envelopes mailed to U.S. addresses after 9/11. When Canada sought to produce a vaccine, Scott says the U.S. refused to export that dangerous strain. And all of this, he says, can't be replaced.
There's no way that you can go back in time and collect those strains at the time they were collected.
Scott even built a board game to raise money and never heard back from the Ontario government after sending this letter warning we have exhausted all avenues of funding. A century of research soon lost for good. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Tonight, it is a U.S. presidential campaign at ground level. A lot of things have changed here in Georgia since Donald Trump lost in 2020 and claimed the state was full of fraud.
That was a rigged election.
It wasn't rigged, but Republican lawmakers started changing the election process.
And so we're going to protect that right no matter what.
Did rules really change to secure the vote? Depends who you ask.
The suspicious believe all the changes were designed to make sure Donald Trump doesn't lose again.
You ready for the Lions Den?
Oh, I'm always.
I know you are.
I mean, look, I live in the Lions Den.
Fair or not, where there's distrust and concern and frustration about how Georgia is running its election this year, this is the woman who wears a lot of it.
You know, people get concerned, like, are you trying to pull voters over here and, you know, or pull them over there?
Miss Janelle King.
Janelle King, a former Republican strategist, new member of the state election board, and newly minted lightning rod.
So I am here to make sure that the information that's being digested is not one-sided.
Hopefully you're aware that because white people have been stealing election from black people forever, that they came up with a concept called widespread fraud.
I appreciate
On this day, she's doing grassroots outreach in Atlanta, trying to bat away suggestions she and her election board are part of an effort to tinker with Georgia's rules in favor of Donald Trump.
I hate that people feel that way. That's what frustrates me, is that there are people that are sitting with this anxiety that's completely made up. I haven't spoken to the president. I haven't spoken to the campaign. I don't do anything for any particular party.
Thank you, Georgia. Get out and vote.
But Donald Trump has certainly expected Georgia officials to do something for him in the past, demanded it when he lost Georgia in 2020, and refused to accept the election hadn't been stolen.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. You should want to have an accurate election, and you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
When Georgia officials stood by their election, wouldn't fine Trump the votes he claimed were stolen, his party got to work changing the way elections are run in the state, including changing the makeup of election boards, like that critical state election board Janelle King is now a member of. And guess who really likes the makeup of that board?
Janice Johnson, Rick Jeffries, and Janelle King, 3 people, are all pit bulls fighting for honesty, transparency, and victory.
Victory? Interesting thing to say. Was he misspeaking? Well, it just so happens the Republican Party state chair, Joshua McCoon, is also thrilled. Called the new state election board a working majority. Can you understand why some people would hear that and be concerned about that?
I personally don't like that terminology. I don't care how you vote. I care about if the rule is a good rule, because the rule is going to be in place regardless of who's appointed.
But what sounds like a good rule for some gets labeled as chaos by others. In Georgia, there's so little trust on either side that faith in the election process is hardly guaranteed.
We're coming in, Tim.
That makes this woman mad.
You have to have a prox card to get in this door. And you know, people always talk about, well, machines can be hacked. Well, number one, you're gonna go through me first, and then you got 3 or 4 levels of security before you can actually get to these machines. So this right here is our code silver. This is for a bomb threat. This is for active shooter.
Deidre Holden is the proud election supervisor of heavily Republican Paulding County. Says voter rolls and the counting process are meticulous. She's fed up with false claims of fraud and still rattled by threats she got after the 2020 election and before a critical Senate runoff case.
I get this email threatening that they're going to blow up all of our polling locations on Election Day. They're going to blow up government offices. They're going to make the Boston bombings look like child's play. I don't want anything to happen to our poll workers, my staff. I don't want that to ever, ever happen, because I would carry that. I would feel like that was my fault. But we're doing everything we can. This is our voting area. The lines are moving very quickly.
Early voting is breaking records in Georgia. That's good. But Holden says keeping up with the Republican-steered rule changes isn't easy. Some so striking, comedy writers couldn't help but write them into an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Here you go. I knew this would come in handy.
Oh! Thank you. For this, sir, it is illegal for anyone in the state of Georgia to provide food or water to voters in line at the polls.
What?
Problem is that don't hand out food or drink in line rule is a real rule imposed since 2020.
Oh, no, you're making a big mistake.
The first morning I was like, whatever I can do for you. They were like, coffee. And I was like, I can't. I'll go to jail. I can't do that. I'm sorry.
You see an elderly person standing in line and it's hot?
Yeah, they need water.
And you can't, can anybody give it to them?
Nope, nobody.
Won't that just make some people who are vulnerable leave?
Probably. We need to be doing better and making laws and rules that really help the voter and not hinder them.
But maybe that wasn't the point of some of the rules, to help the voter vote.
Absolutely.
Adding to her stress, the Republican-leaning state election board, that one Janelle King sits on, just tried to push through 7 brand new rules about hand counting, absentee ballots, certification. They went all the way to the state Supreme Court before they were shut down by justices just 2 weeks before the election.
You don't throw something like those rules out this close to the most historic election that we're going to be conducting and cause mass confusion with the poll workers, with the voters.
The justices agreed.
I've said it several times.
Janelle King does not. Now says she's not sure Georgia's election will be okay.
Oh, I felt a lot more confident in this process, and particularly our election process here in Georgia when our rules were in place, the rules that we recently passed. I think that sometimes the victory is in knowing that there is a group of people who are watching very closely, and we're certainly watching.
Oh, say does that star-spangled.
So the dangerous seeds of doubt that fraud looms are being sown again. And here at a Republican breakfast, they take root.
And the home of the brave.
So we'll be back hopefully in court again for some voter challenge issues. And we've had emergency filings to the State Board of Elections.
This is DeKalb County's Republican Chair, Marcy McCarthy.
Never dealt with so many attorneys in my entire life, but this is good. We did not have this before, and I feel very, very, very excited.
The perception here is the only reason why Donald Trump wasn't able to prove fraud occurred in 2020 is the legal cases were tossed for technicalities. That's not so, but this time they vow not to let that happen.
So when you call that hotline...
That's Mark Moisier, one of Donald Trump's lawyers, here to guide people on how to report problems. And he's got hotline numbers ready to give out.
I'm here in the state of Georgia to make sure that if there is a lawsuit that needs to be filed, that we have the right lawsuit filed with the right evidence in the right court, so that if there is a problem with our elections, we can prevail.
And so do the courts.
We are going to start with your motion.
One new rule makes it easier for the public to challenge anyone's ability to vote.
If a person's status is challenged, there's a flag, and they are in kind of limbo status and they can show up at the polls and present the documents.
Civil rights lawyers like Poi Winnechuckle are busy because being put on a list can be complicated to undo. This case dealing with just 65 voters.
I've heard all your arguments, I've taken notes.
But a Republican group called True the Vote
have challenged 63,000 voters here since the summer.
Why did they do that?
They do that because of this lie that has been spread, that our voter rolls are not accurate, that the kind of most vulnerable populations of our citizenry, of transient populations, people of color, are getting swept up in some of these challenges is obviously incredibly concerning to us.
In a state that was at the forefront of the American civil rights movement, any threat to the hard-fought right to vote sets off alarm bells.
So again, we got a lot of work to do. Our fundamental freedoms are on the ballot.
In an Atlanta church, curiously, just like at that Republican breakfast, there are phone numbers handed out, direct lines to legal teams, just in case.
And you think that we're going to give up this right to vote, that we're not going to use it?
Here, doubt, fear, distrust are lurking dangers.
We ain't going back. We ain't going back. Let's go vote.
Mobilizing the vote, taking that bus statewide to do so is, for Helen Butler, a civil rights duty.
A lot of people died for that right. And so we're going to protect that right no matter what comes along. So any barriers that they put in place, we're going to make sure that our people still get to exercise their right to vote.
As big as the rallies are that you see in the state now, maybe the most telling sign of how people feel is that board right there, Georgia votes early. Not traditionally what happens, but numbers are huge, both sides looking for big margins. Because if this state is close again, brace yourselves.
Now, as if those concerns weren't enough, get this, new reports from national and local media here tonight that Georgia officials have foiled an election cyber attack by what's described as a suspected foreign actor. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Next, we head to a rally just outside of Atlanta to speak with Trump's supporters.
Why do I believe him? I don't know.
Why they remain loyal to their candidate. Next. Our questions for the crowd at a rally for Donald Trump. Paul Hunter asks why they think he is a good leader.
President Trump talks to us like he's one of us.
What's their take on January 6th and the latest bombshell quote attributed to Trump?
Oh, that's baloney. Come on. Do you really believe that?
That rally took place here in Georgia just hours ago. Here's Paul with some of the reasons those voters want Trump back in the White House.
Outside yet another Donald Trump rally, and it's all Trump all the time, and proudly so. Here in Duluth, Georgia, just northeast of Atlanta, in the middle of a crucial swing state.
USA!
Thousands have turned out just to see him, some lining up fully 26 hours before the doors open. Of course, there's Trump merch everywhere. Some of it the kind of thing you might expect, some of it a bit more in your face. Reminders of that day in July, mixed with tributes to those who back Trump and mockery for those who oppose him.
To try to understand what motivates Trump supporters, this many of them, to come out and stand in the sunshine for hour after hour at rally after rally after everything the world has come to learn about Donald Trump. The only thing you can do to try to understand this is to come to one of these and listen. And that's why we're here.
Hello.
Put Trump's negatives to any of them and you'll get a heartfelt answer. It's not on Trump. All those felony convictions.
What's on the back of your shirt?
It says
Turn
that I
around,
vote
show
for a
us.
felony.
Show us.
I mean, I can.
I'm voting for the felon, it says.
The fix was in, we're told. The system targeted Trump, who still insists he did no wrong.
Why do you not believe them, but you do believe him?
Why do I believe him?
Yeah.
I don't know. I see more good than negative. I just do, personally.
Even on today's reports, Trump wants his generals to be like Hitler's. The comeback is firm.
His whole inner circle from his time in office has spoken out against him, including John Kelly now in this story today.
It's
that,
rough
that he
in
wanted
Washington.
his generals to be
it's
like
hard
Hitler's.
in Washington. Oh, that's baloney. Come on. Do you really believe that? I've never heard him say such a thing. That's asinine. And even if he believed it, why would he say it? He's not that stupid. Sorry.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
On what played out with the rioting on Capitol Hill, January 6th, 2021, and Trump's role in the violence?
Nobody came there to overthrow the government. And if we were going to
Hang
do it,
Mike Pence, they were shouting.
A group, you know.
Edward X. Young told us he was there that day. Trump led a peaceful rally, he says, later infiltrated by disruptors.
I do not believe it was the Trump supporters that started this. And it was a small group, and I believe they were plants.
Bottom line, we're told, don't blame Trump. They 100% believe in him. Full stop.
Not only does he love the country, but he loves the people.
Diana Endres told us the reason is simple, and it echoes what's been said of Trump for years. It's simply that he isn't like a politician, unlike the rest of them.
Because he talks to us that he's one of us. I've supported politicians that will speak on platitudes and talk to us. President Trump talks to us like he's one of us.
And that, she tells us, matters more than anything.
And here's the thing. This election is effectively neck and neck. At the end of the day, it may all come down to turnout. Whose supporters are more motivated to get out, more enthused about getting out to the polling stations on Election Day? This is one indicator of the degree of enthusiasm for Donald Trump. But make no mistake, throughout the country, there are many, tens of millions more who share their views.
The underlying message from all: dismiss the continuing fierce support for Donald Trump at your peril.
In other words, Adrian, they will turn out, and they fully expect Donald Trump to win.
And Paul, I think a lot of people wonder, especially given January 6th, where does all that emotion go if he loses?
Yeah, well, I put that to them. And look, I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the handful of people I spoke with today represent all of MAGA, because they don't. But I did speak with a lot of people, more than we could fit into that piece, for example. And by and large, the answer to that question, what if he loses, what will they do, was so be it. That there will be another Republican candidate 4 years from now that they can try to vote into the White House. But all that said, look, they love this guy with a kind of passion. They see a real righteousness in his bid to go back into the White House. And so maybe the real answer to the question is, what will Donald Trump say if he loses? Because they listen to him.
Absolutely. All right, Paul Hunter in Duluth, Georgia. Thanks, Paul. Next, it's not only wild, but it's also rude, and it's causing trouble in Ottawa.
What surprises me is how aggressive this one in particular has been with a number of people.
A turkey with a tude in our moment. Well, this total turkey is making a name for itself in an Ottawa neighborhood where it has been threatening residents, pecking at cars, causing a general sense of unease, if you will. Residents are now watching their steps, trying to avoid being in the crosshairs of this animal gone rogue. And tonight, the poultry problem makes our moment.
We are very used to wildlife, whether it be deer or coyote and even wild turkey. What makes this a unique case different is just the aggressiveness of this turkey in question that's been approaching people, almost stalking people in many regards. I heard from one resident in particular who was basically at the end of her rope with a very aggressive turkey in particular, who approaches people, whether they're on foot or in their vehicles, trying to get into their vehicle, trying to get out of their vehicle. We've heard of delivery, people not wanting to come out of their trucks to deliver packages because there's a turkey right there waiting for them. I've been on these streets. I know these streets and this community very well. Wild turkeys are common in Ottawa. I see them now and then in the ward, so I'm not surprised to see them. What surprises me is how aggressive this one in particular has been with a number of people.
Listen, stay away from these things. They are sketchy. I watched a turkey chase my poor mom around a car at a car wash not that long ago. Be careful out there. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.